Well, if it seems like lawmakers are trying to streamline the session, speed it up a bit this year, you may have noticed the same things that others have. We've talked about the Joint Finance Appropriations Committee and how they're trying to cut down on their 3-hour budget meetings. But what if the timeline for public testimony is too tight? Is 24 or 48 hours enough notice for people to say their piece on policy? Not according to the Mountain States Policy Center, who wants to see more time allowed for the citizens to get involved in Idaho's citizen legislature.
I suspect that a lot of people haven't even had an opportunity to read this bill and digest it.
You may have heard it at the end of Wednesday's House State Affairs hearing on House Bill 415.
In this case, it seems like we're just rushing through this.
When Representative John Gannon,
especially when we still have people that want to testify,
wanted to extend the time allowed for public testimony, saying some people haven't had enough time to take their shot on a bill that would allow teachers to conceal carry on campus. However, Chairman Brent Crane,
so it was introduced actually on Monday,
described his timeline like this.
We're Wednesday today, so that's 48 hours from the time we introduced the bill to the time you had a hearing on the bill.
48 hours, according to Chairman Crane, seems like plenty of time for public notice. And it's how he's always tried to do it.
You've sat on this committee for a number of years now. It's about 48 hours, typically, from the time that a bill is introduced that it can be brought before a committee for a hearing.
But there are others
no problem,
who think it should be done differently.
We can all be a little more worry-free if we support the rule of 3.
This is what we call the rule of 3, and it's pretty simple, and it just gives citizens more of an opportunity to be involved in the process.
The rule of 3, according to the Mountain States Policy Center, would be to give people at least 3 days notice of a committee hearing.
And that just is a fair way, we feel like, to give citizens the opportunity to travel to Boise if they need to do that, or to make plans to testify before a legislative committee. It's really difficult for someone, if they're, let's say, in North Idaho or Idaho Falls or wherever they might be, to change their schedule on a whim and to travel to Boise if there's really an important issue that they care about.
More witnesses.
Cargill points to what happened last week.
Trevor Chadwick, are you in the room?
With House Bill 406.
The fentanyl mandatory minimums bill that came up, and it was introduced on a Wednesday, printed for public consumption and review on a Thursday, and then they held a public hearing on a Friday. I mean, look, the way the system is set up right now, it works pretty well for lobbyists or activists who are right next to the Capitol, and they can go from room to room and testify, but it really shuts out the average citizen if you're going to do these things, especially so early in session when we've got so much time left in the legislative session.
So you may be wondering about Idaho's open meeting law, which requires a 48-hour agenda notification.
What happens is the legislature is exempt from that. And so the legislature can do 24 hours, it could do 48 hours, it could do 5 days if it really wanted to. And so what we're suggesting is that the legislature change its own rules to just say, you know what, we're going to give it a 3-day period to hold a public hearing. And that way, everyone, whether it be a lobbyist, an activist, the legislator, it's him or herself, can actually read through the bill and understand it.
The chair is going to take a moment here to speak to an issue that has been brought up today that I think needs addressed.
Again, on Wednesday.
And that's the speed at which legislation moves through this body.
Chairman Crane felt the need for further explanation.
However, we are a part-time legislature. We are elected to come here in about 90 days and get work done. I
can appreciate that, but at the same time, that's not necessarily a good way to go about getting the public involved.
If it gets introduced on a Monday, it'll probably get heard on a Wednesday or Thursday.
They are a citizen legislature, and I would suggest to you that also means, Brian, making sure that you're listening to your fellow citizens. And giving them the opportunity to participate and have meaningful participation.
So just to make it loud and clear to everybody listening in the state of Idaho, we're going to continue to move at the speed of business in here, and we'll continue to do so. So with that, we stand adjourned.
I know what you're probably thinking as well. What about Zoom, like as we spoke to Chris Cargill today? Well, he says even that can be kind of tough to do for people who don't pay attention to what's happening in the legislature on the hourly basis. So things change overnight sometimes with those agendas. We tried to reach out to Representative Crane, chair of the House State Affairs Committee, to ask him about considering lengthening the time between when a bill is introduced and when it is given a public hearing. We've yet to hear back, but that 48-hour timeline seems to be pretty consistent across many of the committees, even with the bills expected to attract the most attention, like House Bill 384, the harmful materials in the library bill. printed on Wednesday, public hearing the following Monday. House Bill 415, the arming teachers bill, printed on Monday, heard just yesterday. So should testimony on legislation be given at least a 72-hour notice? We'd love to hear what you have to say about this.